quick. And all right, so let's get this started, shall we?
All right.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and then how did you get into the world of crypto?
Yeah, so my name's Benny. I'm from Vancouver, Canada. I got into crypto or the blockchain space around early 2017. I was part of the team that launched CryptoKitties, and we formed Dapper Labs soon after that and had a chance to work on Cheese Wizards and NBA Top Shot. I was actually in Hong Kong in 2018, uh, in the Animoca office, talking to Yat and Yusuf and everybody. At that time, Animoca was still focusing on mobile games, and they were our first international partner based in Hong Kong to bring CryptoKitties to Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore. And so that's kind of how I, came to Hong Kong and I met a bunch of other folks in that city. So it's been a really fun 6 years of working in NFTs and thinking about it, waking up, dreaming about it, sleeping. And I left Dapper Labs in October 2021. And it's been about, I guess, a year and a half ish now. And I started my own, software design company that's focusing on building primitives for decentralized communities. It's called Future Primitive. It's based in, well, me and my co-founder Steve Giang, he's based in San Francisco, and I'm based here in Vancouver. And yeah, for the last year and a half, we've been doing a lot of experimental NFTs, and it's been a fun ride.
That's amazing. And I know you're one of the founders of ERC 6551. And can you explain what ERC 6551 is and what its main purpose?
Yeah, so you may have already heard of ERC 721. That was a standard that I had a chance to participate in, along with the broader team, Dieter and Fabiano and all of them from the early CryptoKitties side. So ERC 721 is the standard, of course, now known as NFTs. And so 6 years later, I've had a chance to, with the team here at Future Primitive, work on a new standard called ERC 6551. The key main difference is that 6551 is not a token standard. So it often gets confused or compared to like 721. So it's not like you have to make a decision between 721, 1155, or 6551. In fact, you just launched a normal NFT project and it already has 6551. So I'll explain a little bit more about ERC 6551. So um I usually refer to it as token bound accounts. And the reason why it's called token bound accounts is it's the opposite of soul bound tokens. So soul bound tokens are NFTs or tokens that you cannot transfer, they're tied to your wallet. Token bound accounts is the idea that every single NFT on every single EVM chain has an account or wallet that's attached to the token. It's basically a account that's bounded to a token, which is a NFT, right? And so that's the simple idea of ERC 6551. The other thing that's super important is for the last 6 years, since the beginning of beginning of NFTs and CryptoKitties, there has been a lot of imagination all around the world of like how do we take NFTs further, right?
Right.
So in 2018, there was a project called Kitty Hats, and it was this idea of putting hats on your kitty, and so that was probably the earliest project of exploring the idea of equipping things onto your NFT assets, right? That was created by Dan, who was the first employee of OpenSea. So Kitty Hats is no longer really a project supported, but that was when it really began. Since then, since 2018 till now, there's been many different standards. There's ERC 998. There's a few other companies that have tried to build a protocol on different blockchains, etc. But the key main differences for 6551 or token bound accounts, there's actually five. One is that it works with every single NFT, from CryptoKitties to Azuki to Bored Ape to any new NFT launched. and also any NFT launched on any other blockchain that is EVM compatible. Number two is your NFT can hold any type of asset. So it could hold ETH, USDC, Pepe coins if you want it, ERC 721s, 1155s. If tomorrow you create a new token standard, let's say it's ERC 8888, you could put those tokens inside of the NFT as well, the account. So that's number two. Number three is that there's no wrapping contracts. So this is really important. There's a lot of different protocols out there that they could give you these properties of asset ownership for your NFT, but you need to wrap your NFT. You need to send your NFT to a contract. For our standard, there is no wrapping at all. Number four is it works with every single platform because it's simply a wallet or an account. There's so much infrastructure out there. You can use Wallet Connect and log in as your NFT. You can literally log in as an Azuki and trade on Uniswap or an OpenSea. It's using wallet infrastructure. And then number five, the key one is it's decentralized. So you'd be surprised. A lot of the projects have like a centralized smart contract, which is holding all the assets that you nest inside of an NFT. But for us, every single NFT basically has a smart contract account or wallet. And so the NFT is the owner of this account. We can't do anything about it. So those are the five main differences between 6551 and all the other different standards that are out there.
That's awesome. So would you say ERC 6551 it's a better version of ERC 721?
Um, the way I would think about it is if we were to rewind back time 6 years and we were back in the room that we were working on 721 and CryptoKitties, I think if we had the same idea that we have now, it should have been included to the 721 contract or the 721 standard. There's a really interesting thing that I always think about is, when you look at the internet, when you go to a website and you type in the wrong URL, it says 404 error, right? It's like an internet code, HTTP code that tells you, that there's no such website or directory here, right? And a lot of these rules were like these HTTP rules were organized or defined in the early 90s or 2000s, which is pretty old, right? There's a HTTP 402, which most people don't know, was actually thought about in the early days when they were defining all these rules. And HTTP 402 defines like they were trying to explore an internet native payment system that uses the internet for payments. And so the reason why I bring this up is because there are a lot of things that when they were like defining the rules of the internet in the 90s or 80s that people were thinking about, like Tim Berners-Lee and a bunch of them thinking about like, how, where do we want to go here in the future? Some of these things were not included. And 6551 is a similar one, right? Where it really kind of takes the concept of NFTs, it takes it to the new level, the level that it's supposed to be at. The level where NFTs were beyond just overpriced JPEGs, that NFTs were beyond just buy, sell, trade. With 6551, it gives it and all NFTs three new properties, right? It gives it the first property is asset ownership, which we already talked about. Your NFT can own other assets. And the really cool thing is you can have an NFT that owns an NFT that owns an NFT that owns, so on and so forth. So that's super cool. Number two is social identity. So as I kind of touched on, your NFT now, you already see people using it as their profile picture on Twitter, right? Some people already even creating personalities, add-on personalities on Twitter. With 6551, now you can log in, you can create transaction history for your NFT. You can start to become your NFT, right? So that's super awesome. And the third thing, which we'll probably get to a little bit later, is kind of like thinking about the future. And for me, the future, the third property is something we call action potential. What does that mean? So this what this means is that when you pair an NFT with an AI model or an LLM, you can actually have an NFT perform on-chain actions by themselves. Because an NFT now has its own wallet, it almost acts equal to like a human on a blockchain, right? And so you can imagine like, hey, you could tell your doodles, hey, I want you to collect the coolest music NFTs, and it goes and buys the coolest music NFTs, right? So the short answer to your question is it does not compete with 721. It actually adds more value to every single 721 that exists currently.
That's interesting. And so, if that's the case, how do you think ERC 6551 allows 722 tokens to interact within the blockchain and own on-chain assets?
How does it work? Well, there's a decentralized registry that's specified in the 6551 standard. And what the registry does is that it basically links, uses create two deterministic addresses, and it basically looks at every single NFT token ID or every NFT collection contract, and then it assigns a smart contract account that's linked to it. And so, as of right now, like if you wanted to send, I don't know, 1 ETH to a random CryptoKitty, you can do that. The way you would do that is you go to tokenbound.org and then you connect your wallet. And if you have a CryptoKitty, it'll show you the tokenbound account address or the TBA address. And so with this address, you can just literally go to MetaMask and send whatever you want to it. There's no action required. So that's I think the really magical thing about 6551 or token bound accounts is that literally about a month and a half ago, the entire world woke up and NFTs were completely changed. But there was no action required by the owner, no action required by the creator of the project. It just became reality that every NFT has an account.
That's amazing. That's amazing. And I know you have already touched on this a little bit, but how does ERC 6551 ensure the compatibility with like existing infrastructure that supports Ethereum accounts? Like, can you explain a little bit on that?
Yeah, so what a token bound account is, it's a smart contract wallet or smart contract account. This has been around for a while now. So I kind of, I think one of the first smart contract accounts or wallets was the Dapper wallet, which I had a chance to work on. And I think everyone knows about Gnosis Safe or Safe nowadays. That's also a smart contract account. There's also Argent, and there's a few others out there. So smart contract wallets have been around for a while now. More recently, there's a different proposal, ERC 4337, which was written by Vitalik and a few others. ERC 4337 specifies something that is called account abstraction, which is this idea of like, we have to move away from EOA wallets or Ethereum owned accounts, which have public private key pairs and seed words, everything that we know that we've for the last 6 or plus years had to experience of keeping the seed words safe and all of that. Vitalik, I think since 3, 4 years ago, have been writing about, hey, we really need to move away from this type of wallet for various reasons. Definitely worth the read. And more recently, ERC 4337 has fully passed and is live on mainnet. I think it was February ETH Denver. That's when they formalized it. And so 4337 account abstraction is this movement that specifies like, hey, we need to move away from EOA wallets and all of that. So the reason why token bound accounts and why I bring up 4337 is 6551 is essentially account abstraction for NFTs. So if you imagine this huge wave that Vitalik and everybody is like pushing for, like moving away from EOA wallets, we're kind of like on that same wave. And the only difference is that our focus is around NFTs. While if you look at Gnosis Safe, or there's a bunch of other account abstraction companies or projects, they're kind of focused on a general use case of like, hey, you should replace your MetaMask with our wallet. For us, we don't really care about that too much. What we care about is, isn't it cool that an NFT has a wallet or an account? So secondly is, because there's already this wave, there has been a lot of different proposals like 1271 for signing with a smart contract account and a few other ones. And essentially, a lot of the different wallets or Wallet Connect or different wallet services or even dApps, they all now support signing or logging in or using Wallet Connect for a smart contract wallet. And since we're basically the same structure, the paradigm, we're fully compatible with 4327, we're leveraging that same existing infrastructure.
I just thought of this question randomly because it's a bear market and I saw a lot of NFT projects actually die because of the bear market. And do you think that has hindered the promotion of ERC 6551, or does it like hinder people's interest of using it? Or do you think there's an impact on it?
I actually think it's the opposite. Things have actually been like been growing quite a lot actually. 721s or NFTs kind of, so what I think what has happened is it was the CryptoKitties boom and then Axie Infinity and then it kind of died, the the bear market of 2019 to 2020 or something like that. And then there was that second wave of NFTs, the previous one, where the Bored Apes, the Azuki, the Doodles, and Moonbirds and all of them came. And that was kind of focused on the whole PFP paradigm, which was pretty interesting. They also focused a lot on social utility, like in real life perks. So they had a lot of parties and events that were super cool. They did a lot more focus around merchandising and clothing and all of that. So that was like the last recent wave, right? And we kind of reached this bottom trough in the last, I don't know, 9 or plus months, where essentially a lot of the projects kind of like couldn't figure out what to do. They a lot of them raised a lot of money, and the valuation's really high, and they couldn't really figure out a recurring revenue stream. And royalties became like a zero pretty much with the Blur and the OpenSea. So it's kind of been a tough environment, and a lot of the blue chips are still like thinking about what to do next.
Right.
And that's actually the perfect opportunity, because with 6551, because it works with every single NFT, it actually adds new properties automatically. And we are talking to a lot of blue chip projects. We're also talking to a lot of different companies, and there's already a developer working group that has 1,000+ developers from OpenSea, Seaport, Gnosis Safe, Gnosis Safe, Gnosis Guild, like Zora, like pretty much every major protocol. And there's also a lot of people, like there was just a ETH Global Paris hackathon that just finished, I think yesterday, and there were like, I don't know, 10 plus, 15 plus projects that were building on 6551. So to your question, I don't think it actually yeah, I think actually it's the opposite. A lot more people are excited about NFTs now.
Wow, 10 to 15 project building on 6551.
Yeah, that's just
He
from the hackathon. Yeah, there's actually like,
really,
in total, I think there must be like 30, 40 plus working on this. Some notable projects are like Fuel World, which is from Ferocious, a well-known NFT artist or artist in general. We have Parallel. They're like a top 20 NFT project that started off as a trading game. Now they're building a AAA game. We're talking closely with all the marketplaces, OpenSea, Zora, Airstack is providing infrastructure like indexing. So there's a lot of people building game related projects. There's a lot of people building DAO related projects like Station and DAO House. YGG Yield Guild Games is also exploring 6551. and then we have infrastructure, and then we also have social networks. So Lens protocol, they just announced Lens v2. Lens v2 is going to be using ERC 6551. So there's definitely a lot of folks building on 6551 at this moment.
That's exciting. Yeah, there's definitely yeah, 6551 is definitely a hot topic right now. And I think a lot of people want to know, are there any potential security consideration or like risk associated with 6551?
Yes, so security risk. So as you know, smart contracts in general, there's always a risk, right? I would be lying if I said, every smart or our smart contracts are 100% proof.
Safe,
There's
yeah,
no such thing, there's no such thing in this space. So our contracts are audited, so that's good, but you have to keep auditing as you add things to it. So there's a few things. One is there's something that we call so one thing I'll say is NFTs up until now, they have been one dimensional, right? You have an NFT, it's a JPEG, it has metadata, description or whatever, traits, and it's in a wallet and it's like one layer, right? So what we've done is we made NFTs like three-dimensional or four-dimensional, right? You could have many things inside. So sometimes that's referred to as like we've given NFTs a state. And so this is something that is a very challenging problem, because now that an NFT could own an NFT and own an NFT, etc., when you make a bid on an NFT, like say you want to buy the Suzuki, and you know that there's like a X amount of ether inside, and there's a moonbird inside too, right? How do you make sure that you don't get scammed? Right? Where like you put a bid and then that person takes out the stuff and then you get an empty NFT, right? So that's something we call bait and switch attack. There's other names for this, is what we call it. And to prevent against it, there's two things. One is right now, present day, on the contracts, there is something that's called the lock. So you can actually lock your token bound account for a maximum of 1 year. And when you lock it, excuse me,
pretty good.
I got allergies. So when you lock it for 1 year, you cannot withdraw anything from the token bound account, but you could put stuff in. So basically, as a seller, we always say it's best you lock your token bound account, so then the buyer can trust it, right? Now, of course, that's a lot of burden for the buyer to do. Like we're asking the buyer to do homework, right?
Right.
And we know buyers aren't really like spending all the time to do the homework. So this we know is a temporary measure. It is live right now. That's how we protect you, right? The second thing that we're working on is we're actually teaming up with the Seaport team. That's the protocol, the marketplace protocol for OpenSea. They have an engineer that's working with us closely. And what we're working on is a custom Seaport zone. And the long story short is what we want to do is if there's going to be someone placing a bid, but they're going to check if there's anything that has changed inside of the token bound account. If something has changed, that bid would be canceled, right? If nothing changes, the bid could be accepted. So essentially, it's going to be from a protocol level of a protection, and that's so much better. That's a lot better for the buyer, right? They don't have to do the homework.
Definitely.
They just
Yeah,
could trust that when they place the bid, that they're going to get what they're going to get, right? But this is a challenge that is going to affect all of NFTs. That all NFTs that want to put things inside of the actual asset, right? So yeah, that's kind of the main security things that have popped up.
definitely. And how do you think ERC 6551 handle the issue of account ambiguity?
How do you mean by account ambiguity?
Uh to be honest, I wasn't the one giving this question, so I don't really know. But my coworkers want to know. That's why.
Oh, I've
Yeah.
never I don't know. Maybe I don't know the answer to that question. I don't really know what account ambiguity is.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
We can move on to another question. Um, can you explain a little bit about the concept of counterfactual account addresses in ERC 6551?
Yeah, so we use create two deterministic addresses. So the long story short of this is it's it's really important that every NFT has a token bound account address. And there's two ways you could kind of think about it. One is do we want do we want you to do something like take an action to uncover the address, or do we want to just basically give you the address, right?
Hmm.
So we decided to go for the other path, which is essentially assign every NFT with an address. What that means is that without any actions, you can search up a NFT and you can grab the address and you could send things inside. We think that's valuable because if we had to wait for every single NFT owner to basically sign a transaction and or like do an on-chain transaction to assign a wallet, well, it would take forever for people to kind of learn about it, right? So that's why we kind of went for counterfactual addresses. We used the Crate 2 library on that. And that's how we kind of it's like, I call it the magic trick because every NFT has an address already, so you
Right.
could receive assets. The only reason why, so the other thing that's important is the NFT already has an address, but the actual smart contract account is not deployed. So that means you can't really use the token amount account. If you want to withdraw assets out, you have to deploy the smart contract account. And so on tokenbound.org, there's a button that says activate account. You pay some gas, and then now you basically activated it, and then you could use that account, right?
Yeah. All right. That's awesome. And how would you say, how would you predict or foresee the potential impact of 6551 on the NFT ecosystem?
Yeah. It's really exciting. I think it's going to change everything about NFTs. I think it's going to create it's going to awake some new energy into this space. And as I mentioned before, the one that I'm really interested in is imagining, what NFTs can be. Since 6 years ago, I've been thinking a lot about NFTs, and certainly, there's been a lot of friction because a lot of people they either love NFTs or they hate NFTs, and then a lot of times people who hate it they really they think of it as like, well, it's like a JPEG that is now has some data and it's now worth X amount of money. And one thing I think about is like, how do we take that further and further and further and further away from just being a JPEG with metadata, right?
Right.
And I think it's a part of our part of this whole movement of NFTs is thinking about the idea of digital objects, right? In real life, we own objects, right? Like a car or a house or apartment. Maybe you're into sneakers or you buy toys or whatever, right?
Right.
So humans themselves, we love to collect objects, or we get objects for free from our parents that mean a lot, right? And I always think about it from a human standpoint that as we kind of move more and more to being more digital, having a digital life, we're going to own more and more digital objects in the future. It's just how it's going to be because people are going to run out of space in their house to hold all these physical objects, right?
Right.
So if I think about it, I'm like, well, I think every human's going to have hundreds of thousands or maybe millions of digital objects that they will own in the next 20, 15, 30 years of their lives. And a lot of these digital objects are going to be NFTs rather than cryptocurrency. And a lot of these NFTs, a lot of them are going to be kind of crappy, but some of them will be kind of cool, right? And so with 6551, a lot of these NFTs that are currently sitting in cold storage, like they're not doing anything, they just sit there and you hope that the floor price rises. You could actually assign tasks or actions to your NFTs to do, right?
Right.
And now you're increasing productivity, or maybe you're kind of programming your NFTs to be tweeting things that are funny, like entertainment. You're now going beyond what just a JPEG. You're going into a new territory of like, what is this thing now, right? And there is a word for it. Currently, we internally, or even a few of these interviews, I've been calling it NPCs. So if you've been playing any game, if you play games as a kid, you know about NPCs, non-player characters,
Right.
and they're important, right? Like imagine you play Zelda and there are no characters
Yeah,
around.
that would
It'd be
suck.
kind of like,
Yeah.
it would be like, what's the point of this whole thing, right? And that's actually the same for the metaverse, or for all of these different digital worlds. The metaverse has a problem. It's an empty world problem, and nobody hangs out there, right? Only and anyone who hangs out, they're human, but humans, they live all around the world, so we don't really hang out at the same time. So what we really need is to populate these metaverses, these empty worlds. And the way to do it is through these NFTs that already exist, but we need to program them. We need to link them up with an LLM or an AI model. And then they kind of have a personality and they can perform actions. They have their own account, their own wallet. They kind of live their own life. And so we actually call it networked playable characters. Still is an NPC, but it's a little bit different because it's part of a network, right?
Right.
So I think 6551 is gonna open up this gateway of like reimagining what you can do with an NFT, eventually moving it evolves into an NPC. And so I think it's gonna be a huge wave, right? So for the medium, for the creativity, for the artist, for the builders.
Definitely. We're all excited for that. But you mentioned that people either love NFT or hate NFT. What about for the people that know nothing about NFT? Uh, is there something that you would like to say to them, or like to convince them to join the space, or like, is there anything you want to say?
Token bound accounts is going to be the best onboarding and the best offboarding. Reason being is because now a person can go to an e-commerce site and they sign up with their email, and in the database they actually assign an NFT to that person as an account. So it acts as like assigning a wallet, right? This is not new. We've had other companies do this, like Magic Wallet or whatever, right? Or Magic Link, right? But the cool part is then you're shopping around, you're buying physical clothes, and imagine there are digital versions of that are going into your account, right? That the token bound account. And one day you're like, hey, I want to leave this e-commerce store. And sure, okay, all you have to do is just give a wallet that you want the NFT to be sent, and we just send that NFT to that wallet, and now you have full ownership and there's no security risk. So it's the best onboarding, offboarding. So for anyone that is not into NFTs, for anyone that is like new to NFTs, very, very soon, you're gonna get NFTs without even knowing. You're just gonna be going to a website and signing up as your email or your phone number, and you're gonna be assigned an account or a wallet without knowing, and then you're collecting NFTs without knowing until the one day that you're like, hey, I actually have NFTs. So that's gonna be really, really amazing.
Definitely. And there's a question by my coworker as well. So, as far as we know, the token bound account is generated by 6551. It's a contract account, and NFT kind of serve as a key to this contract account. And when writing the registered contract and implementation contract, as long as different rules and features are written in, a series of contract accounts with different application scenarios can be generated. And what's your opinion on this matter? And what's the prospect for it?
Yeah, so I think the core of this question is this idea that an NFT can have many different accounts and many different implementations. That's actually part of the design that we pursued. So there's one school of thought that is like every NFT should have only one implementation or one account. That way it will just stay the same forever, right? Yeah, that's not a bad idea. That means that in 10 years, in 20 years, it will always be the same address for the NFT, right? Um, but because we live in a decentralized and open world, even right now in MetaMask, you could create new accounts, right? You could create new wallets. You can do all that. You have the freedom to create as many wallets as you want. It's the same idea where for an NFT right now we have the default. We have recommended the default implementation because of we've audited it and we've worked with the community on ETH Magician's Forum to hopefully build the best implementation that takes into account everybody's opinion. But later down the road, I mean, if you want to like fork the implementation, build your own, add new functionalities to it, or you want to deploy many different accounts for your NFT, we fully accept that because this standard is an open source standard, and we need to be open and accepting the decentralized nature of it, right? The other thing I'll add is the powerful part of token bound accounts is the idea of extensions. So we haven't really talked about it a lot, but smart contract wallets, one of the power that it has is that it can be programmed because it's a smart contract, right? So in the near future, there's going to be this idea of extensions or like an app store or whatever you want to call it, where you as the owner can go there and actually turn on different functionalities or utilities like staking, wrapping, burning, all sorts of stuff, right? And that is extremely important. The reason why is right now, when you own an NFT, sure, you own the NFT in terms of the asset, right? But you really don't have much control, right? Because control is actually with the creator. They can actually update the contract of the NFT. They are the ones who are shipping new functionalities and utility, right? New smart contracts, all of that, right? So you kind of have to wait for them to ship these things. And a lot of times, if they ran out of money, they're probably not going to ship anything else, right? So that's what they call you got rugged, right?
Right.
So you really don't have control over the NFT. You have ownership, but you don't have control, right? So something I've been thinking a lot about is this idea of creator controlled NFT and owner controlled NFT. Creator controlled is what we have now, right? Pretty much all the NFT project is owned by the creator. They can do everything they want. We basically have to sit around and wait for them to ship, and hopefully they ship the right things. If they don't, then the prices could go down, right? So it's kind of like we're at the mercy of the creators. Owner controlled NFT is what we see as the future, where you as the owner can go to this extension and turn on all these functionalities, these different utilities without the permission of the creator because you own the asset, right? And you can do so many other things with your assets as well. So I think that's kind of like the big difference, and something that we think will be the biggest opportunity.
Definitely. And